everybody this morning. What a beautiful, beautiful day we have. I tell you, everything seems to be in bloom, getting green. My sinuses are stopped up. But it's a beautiful Lord's Day. And we should all be glad to be here this morning. Now, this morning, we're going to talk about some of the problems that we have. But I don't want to get everybody down this morning, so I want you to focus on the hope that we have in Jesus Christ and in God. I do want you to consider some problems that you have, but focus on the good hope that we have. You know, sometimes we seem to have problems that we might call a lifelong problem. And it seems to just not go away. And each and every one of us here this morning is going to have to define that for ourselves. You know, it may be a sin that we repent of and we seem to fall right back into that trap, or it may be something that somebody else does that always just involves us. And it seems like it's always a burden upon us. Is this world tough? Do we have trials? Do we face things sometimes that we feel like are bigger than us? And do we struggle sometimes with our own strength? And do we find ourselves at times at our wits' end? I don't know if any of those things describe you or not, but they certainly describe me. I have suffered at times with each and every one of those things, thinking from, what am I going to do? I don't even know what to do next. And don't seem to have time to think about how to fix this problem. You know, well, we're certainly not alone when it comes to that. And I don't mean about we're able to talk to our friends about it, we're able to talk to our family about it, and I don't even mean that God is with us. He certainly is, but that's not what I'm talking about right at this time. What I'm talking about is we have examples in the Bible where that same thing went on to people in the past. And they struggled with it too, these lifelong problems that seem to not go away. So we're going to look at that a little bit this morning, and we're going to use a fellow for an example to help us be able maybe to handle our problems. Because I don't think you're going to find anybody who had larger problems than this fellow. Many, many others in the Bible have struggled their whole lives for the promise of the promised land in the past. Now, when I mention struggling for the promised land in the past, who comes to mind? Moses. Moses always comes to mind, don't he? Well, we're not going to talk about Moses this morning. We're going to talk about Joshua this morning. Y'all remember Joshua? Well, Joshua was one of the ones, you might call him Moses' helper. He was Moses' right hand, you might say. He was Moses' assistant. Well, let's read a little bit about Joshua this morning to start off with. If you would, turn with me over to the book of Joshua, the first chapter, and I'm going to read the first 9 verses. Now, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea, toward and going down of the sun, shall be your covenant. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life, as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage. For unto this people shalt thou divide an inheritance, the land which I swear unto thy fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper, whichsoever thou goest. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then shalt thy way prosper, and then shalt have good success. But have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou goest. Now, we all know a little bit about the story of Joshua. You remember Joshua? He was one of the 12 spies that they sent out into the land. This is back 40 years from what we just read. And what did Joshua say when he came back? He said, we can take it. We can take it. But all the others, minus one, said, no, we can't. And it cost them. It cost them dearly. But Joshua went on. He remained the course. And he ended up taking the land of promise and dividing it up amongst the 12 tribes. But it wasn't without some problems. You know, do you think that Joshua knew God was with him? Wouldn't it be awesome if we had an example of a person in the Bible that knew God was with them and God showed that he was? Well, that happened with Joshua. And it happened in a way that God says it never happened before Joshua, and it will never happen in the same way again. Now, you think about that. That puts a lot of emphasis upon Joshua's face. I want to read you a little something here. Turn with me, if you will, over to Joshua 10. Joshua chapter 10. This is after Joshua is already over in the land and the battles are going on. Joshua did something that no man has ever done. What did he do? Look at verse 12. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered the Amorites up before the children of Israel. What did he say to the Lord? He says this. And he said, in the sight of Israel, everybody's watching. Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Adullam. Joshua commanded that the sun stand still. Now you look at that. He didn't say, Lord, make the sun stand still. He commanded the sun to stand still. In essence, he commanded God to do something. What kind of system was that? Look at the rest of it. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man. For the Lord fought for Israel. Now that goes a little bit against what we might would do. I'm not sure I'm prepared to be Joshua. But it said, God hearkened unto the voice of a man. He said, I've never done that before, and I won't do it again. Not exactly like that. That's the kind of relationship, the kind of trust that Joshua had in God. That God hearkened to the voice of a man. We can learn from that. We can gather a lot from that. And we can strive to be like Joshua. What can we learn from Joshua? Well, first of all, we need to be strong and courageous. When our best efforts with whatever problem is in your life that just won't seem to go away, when our best efforts do not seem to be good enough, is that ever the case? We're giving our best efforts, but it just doesn't seem to be good enough. When our past experiences give us little encouragement. When our present and future responsibilities seem too big. Sometimes it's just like, this is just too heavy. What am I going to do? When so much of us seems to be demanding, and we don't know if we have any more to give. Do you think Joshua felt this? I guarantee you Joshua felt this. Joshua needed encouragement from God, and God gave it to him. Joshua's past experience were not very encouraging. You remember he'd been eager to go over into the land of promise. He was ready to go. They had just come across the desert at normal speed. Here we are, Lord, we're ready to go. Okay, you want us to go in and look at it? I personally really don't have to, but we'll go in and we'll look at it and come back and let's go. We can do it. And the people said, no, we can't do it. And they went against God's wishes. So they had to wander for 40 years. He had been eager to go in, but he was stopped by a fearful, murmuring bunch of people. He had seen how the people aggravated Moses, causing him, Joshua, to miss Canaan for 40 years. Now you think about that. If there's something in your life that's been bothering you for a long time, here is Joshua, a man to stand and do what the Lord wanted done, and somebody else caused it to be put off for 40 years. Is your 40-year problem that big? Maybe. I'm not going to say it's not a big problem for you. You know, things are relevant. But should you be able to handle it? Absolutely you should. God was with Joshua, and God is with us. His present situation was not very encouraging either. You got to remember, he was a lot younger. He was 40 years younger when he stood at the river wanting to cross over the Jordan into the promised land. He was 40 years younger. What does 40 years do to you? It'll wear you down, don't it? It'll wear you down. 40 years. Joshua had to drag around in the desert with all of these people, seeing Moses being tortured for something that he was ready to do. But it may be a sin that's in your life that you've drug around. It's heavy up on your back. It may be a family member that's straddling your back that you're carrying for 40 years. It may be something that only you know about in your life. But let me tell you, 40 years wasn't no time for God. Joshua had to see everybody of his generation die. What if your problem's not going to go away until everybody in your generation dies? God says, that's okay. I'm still with you. I'm still with you. He was still with Joshua. He no longer had Moses, did he? He no longer had Moses to lean upon. And when the people say, murmur, 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 they were fussing, there's Moses over there. Go over there and talk to Moses. No. It got worse, didn't it? During that 40 years, it didn't get better. It didn't stay the same. It got worse. But what happened? The job was the same. They got right back to that river, and God said, cross the river and go take the land. The job stayed the same. Whatever our current situation is that is bothering and complaining to us that we can't seem to get rid overcome? Well, the answer that God gave Joshua was a twofold message, and it's the same message for us today. First, God encouraged him to go forward. Go forward in his task. Always looking forward in his task. God said right there in Joshua 1 and verse 2, he said, Moses, my servant, is dead. That wasn't news to Joshua, was it? He wasn't informing this to Joshua. Moses is dead. If you will remember, they celebrated Moses' life for 30 days. Everybody knew Moses was gone. So what was God saying to Joshua? He was saying, my servant Moses is dead. Now it's you, buddy. It's you. I know you suffered with this problem for 40 years. I know you were ready to overtake it back some 40 years ago. But that don't change the story. The problem now is even more yours. You've got to continue to fight this problem. You've got to go forward. God was compelling Joshua, not informing Joshua. He was compelling Joshua. Don't look at the past. Look forward. Keep moving forward. They could not live in the past. You know, we've always been taught since we were a little kid, but it seems people don't think we learn very well. Very little profits us from thinking about the past. Even the Old Testament is talked about as being our school teacher. It teaches us some things, but don't focus on it. Let it teach you what it can, but move forward with the New Testament. Well, we've got to move forward with things that are in our life. Past efforts are past efforts. Joshua, when he got back to the river and went over into the battle, he looked at each new battle as something that he had to do now. This is what is at hand. This is my next step to please God. This is what I have to do. He could have looked back, couldn't he? He could have got there and he could have thought, 40 years ago when I come back from over there and I saw these giants that were there, all of our enemies that were there, and I knew we could overcome. I should have hit my knees and held my hands up and told the people stronger, we can do it, we can do it, turn around, go forward, we can do it, and just kept pressing that point until we crossed that river. He could have been doing that and thought, I can't do it. I can't do it because I was weak then. You see, I was weak then and I couldn't have stopped the problem there then. Now it's 40 years later, same problem. Joshua knew he couldn't look at the past. He couldn't look at the past and think I could have done better. He had to look at that river. And he had to say, let's cross that river. Let's cross that river and let's get on with what God has set us to do. Let's handle the battle that is at his hand. Forget those things that are in the past. That's what tells us in Philippians 3 and verse 13. Forget the past and reach ahead. Focus ahead. Focus on your next opportunity to overcome your problem. Focus on the next opportunity, not your failures of the past. Get on with it. We too need to understand our duty toward God and get on with it. John 9 verse 4 from the reading that Mason did this morning, that was Christ speaking. Did you see what Christ himself said? This man that he healed, he had a lifelong problem, didn't he? It said he was blind from birth. But that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on what Jesus said. Jesus said, I must work the work of him who sent me while it is day. In other words, he's saying, I must do what I'm here and been sent to do today. I've got to do it today. And another way he meant, I've got to do it while it is day, while I have the opportunity. We've got to overcome our problems while we've got the opportunity. And every new day is a day to do that. Well, God encouraged Joshua not only to go forward. I mean, you can push somebody out of an airplane. You ever seen these people who go skydive for the first time, well, the last thing they feel is a foot in their back? You know? Well, God didn't do that. God didn't say, well, I want you to parachute out of this airplane. Here's my foot in your back. No. He says, be strong. Be strong and courageous. That's what he told Joshua. When Joshua asked that son to stand still, do you think he was being strong and courageous? He absolutely was. He was not showing any problem with depending on God. And it had to be that mindset. And God knew that mindset. That Joshua knew God was the one that was going to stop that son. Not only did he know that God could do it, he knew God would do it. So he said it in that form. And God pushed the feelings down that gave any authority to Joshua. And he said, I'm going to do what the man said. And that's how we've got to do. That's some big shoes to fill as Joshua. But we've got to do it. We're commanded the same as he was. We're looking for a promised land too. That's not what this story is. That's not what this lesson is about. But we're looking for a promised land too. We're standing there in the river of it. And we can't let our problems get us down to where we're afraid to cross that river. We've got to be strong just like Joshua was. We're going to receive a great land, and it's worth the fight. It's worth the wait. We too have great promises of God. You might say, well, you know, Joshua had these promises now. God had, well, we've got great promises. In the book of Revelation, it talks about the city four square that God's people are going to be welcomed into, the inheritance that we're going to inherit. That's a promise of God. And God tells us, I will never leave you. I will never leave you. And the things that we fight for in the name of God here today, whether it's our weaknesses or the burden that somebody else puts on us, and it might take 40 years or more, God's promises are there for us. God's promises to us are both sure and steadfast. Hebrews 6, verses 17 and 19 says there is hope before us. And I told you this morning that that's what I wanted you to focus on. I want you to focus on that hope. God says there is hope before us. And that's a promise, people. That's a promise from God. And what does the Bible tell us? It tells us God can't lie. He said it, He meant it, and it's the truth. There is hope before us that we can overcome the things that are ahead of us. Joshua needed strength enough to trust God's presence. Do we have that? Do we really believe that God is here with us? God says if two or three gather in my name, there I am also. That means God is here with us this morning. How many of you truly believe that? That God is here this morning? We shouldn't have any problem believing it. God said it, and God can't lie. God is here with us this morning. But you know what? He wasn't talking to a group of people when he said this. He was talking to you. And he was talking to me. He says, I will not leave you. I will be there with you. Now, when I was young, I weighed about 9 pounds, probably in high school. Right on the day I got married, I weighed 120 pounds. So it wasn't too long, but I was halfway through college when I got married. I'd like a little rooster. I mean, and me and Ralph talked about this. You know, I was either going to get beat up or I was going to be the toughest one on the yard. So I tried to be the toughest one on the yard. But I sure felt a whole lot better when one of them big basketball players was standing next to me. Man, I can run circles around them just pointing fingers at people. That's the same way it is. God is with us. We can look at our problems dead in the eye. And we can be that little rooster in the yard that's saying, bring it on. Because it ain't just us. God's standing right behind us. Now you think about that. He's here this morning, and when you're out here in the world and you come up on temptation, and you come up on this problem that will not go away, whatever your 40-year problem is, God's standing right behind you. You should feel his breath on your neck and know that he is right behind you. And it may take some time, but we're going to overcome this problem. Would the Lord command Joshua to go into battle and then leave him stranded? Would God command us to put the kingdom first in our life and live a life where even our Christian example could change others and then not give us his support? No, it absolutely would not do it. In Hebrews 13 and verse 6, it says the Lord is our helper. He's just not going to not forsake us. He's not going to stand there behind us with his breath on our neck and not do anything. He's not there as a spectator. It says, I'm your helper. I'm here to help you. Joshua needed to be strong enough to faithfully believe in God's precepts. To faithfully believe in God's precepts. Now, I want you to understand this. In verses 7 and 8 of our reading there in Joshua 1, it says, only be strong. He tells Joshua to be strong. Why does he tell Joshua to be strong? Does he say, Joshua, you got to be strong to win? No. He says, Joshua, you got to be strong to observe. You got to be strong to be able to see what I can do. He didn't put the task of winning up on Joshua. Joshua didn't stop that sun and make it stand still so the battle could complete that day while they were winning. That was God. That was the power of God. He said, Joshua, you've just got to be strong enough to observe. Now, folks, we can be strong enough to observe. Surely, we can be strong enough just to observe. Our problem is we don't think we're there to observe. We're just there to watch God work. It's just like Moses when I've used this illustration before. It's like when Moses got to the Red Sea and all the people that were coming with him, and they were saying, oh, we shouldn't even be out here. We should have stayed back over there in Egypt where we had a meal. We should have stayed over there in bondage. And what did Moses say to them? He said, stand still and watch God work. Stand still. All you people have got to do is be strong enough to observe, and that's when the Red Sea parted. They didn't have a thing in the world to do it. And we're not going to have a thing in the world to overcome our problems. But you can sure get some pleasure out of watching it. And it might be in your last day, right before you draw your last breath, that your heart changes and you change your problem that's in your life. It might be in your last days that you see something change in the world around you that gives you some peace, that things are going to be different even after you're gone. But God will take care of it. It's God's job, and he said, I'm going to do my job. Only be strong so you can watch. Verse 7 tells us to do according to all that the law of Christ commanded. What's our job? What's part of watching? To do all that God commanded. In verse 7 says it. To not turn from the right or the left. Don't sway. Don't turn from the right, Joshua, and don't turn from the left. go forward. That's in verse 7. Always speak with the oracles of God. Why do that? Because that helps others and it reminds you. Always speak with the oracles of God. That's in verse 8. To meditate on God's word day and night. Think about it day and night, Joshua. Think about it day and night, Scott. That's in verse 8. Be faithful and observe all that is written. That's in verse 8. That's what I've got to do. That's what gives me the strength to just watch. Is to do those things. The same exact things that Joshua was commanded. When we do those things, God will do the rest according to His judgment. He will do the rest according to what He thinks is best. And it will be done. Well, in conclusion, we all have lifelong problems. But we've got to be like Joshua. We've got to have no doubt that God is standing right behind us and ready to lift a hand at any moment. Be like Joshua, the only human in history that commanded something be done, and God said, it's done. I'll do it. Now, I'm not ready to wear those shoes yet. As some people say, God ain't done with me yet. I'm still working on Scott, and God's still working on Scott. But let me tell you, if I ain't moving forward, as this lesson's talking about, there ain't no standing still. As long as Joshua stood still on the original side of the Jordan River, he was not going to be doing God's wishes. He had to move forward. And in order to go forward, he had to be strong. And folks, please don't forget that being strong is just so you can be there to witness it. Just so you can be there to witness it. When we die and we go to heaven, we're going to be there to witness it. We didn't have anything to do with it. It was prepared for us. That's what we want. We want to be witnesses of all of this glory. Be strong enough to simply be a witness. And God will follow up on what He says He will do. It's a promise, and God can apply. If you're here this morning and you haven't obeyed the law that God has set down for us, that's a commandment. God says there will be no one in heaven that does not accept the things that are written in this Bible. That's a commandment. To accept it, to believe it, to move forward, to do it. If there's anything that we